Hey, hey, hey. It's time for Front Porch Radio, everyone. It's Julie Wilder. I've missed, I don't know, several weeks. First, it was work. I do own a bookstore, and it is our busiest time of the year. And then it was not feeling good. Just didn't feel good. Just didn't feel good. So sometimes you just got to stay home. But I'm back, and man, wow, so many things have happened. Many of them interesting and fun, like Stranger Things, right? That was fun. That was interesting. Imagine creating a season finale and then having like basically the whole nation be like, you know what? There were so many inconsistencies and details wrong that they must be messing with us, and there's got to be a hidden episode explaining that they're still in Vecna's mind. They're going to get out some other way. Like, wow, you know what I'm saying? That's pretty intense. I liked it. Me and my kiddo and my sweet boyfriend, he was like, let's build a pillow fort. And so we got into the pillow fort and watched Stranger Things in the new year, which was great. And so grateful for sweet memories like that, right? So important because then you turn on the news and you're like, and apparently most people do not have the same kind of thick skin that I have to be able to tune into the news. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, but we're also going to talk about some really good stuff that's going on in the world because Mr. Rogers, who I bring up all the time on Front Porch Radio, where we have conversations for the common good. Right now, I'm just giving, what is it? What is it, a monologue or a soliloquy? I don't even know. Anywho, it's just going to be me talking at you for the next hour, but I'm going to try to kind of update you, those of you who are like, I don't even know what's going on in the world. And, a lot of people just kind of tune out, and man, it is not politics like usual. There's like the whole, like everything is shifting right now in so many ways. And we're going to kind of talk through that. There's a lot of anxiety going on, but I always like to look for the helpers, right? And I couldn't help but notice that there was a group of Tibetan monks that were doing a peace walk. And I'm not the only one to have noticed. I think today or yesterday, they reached 1 million followers on Facebook, and they started this account just over 2 months ago. And I kind of have a little bit of kind of a, I don't know, like, is it a story? I don't know. I got a connection. I got a connection to the Tibetan monks and here in America, and I think it's a story that's worth telling again. Because it's one of the reasons why I perked up and looked, and I was actually trying to look for photos of the group of Tibetans that came through my business, which was Dandelion Community Cafe at the time. And actually right here at Rollins, they were giving essentially like what they called a cultural presentation. And so it was like a cultural sharing that was on stage. And because I was, one of the owners of a vegetarian restaurant, they reached out to us and they said, hey, would you guys be willing essentially to feed this group of Tibetan monks while they are in town doing these cultural sharings? And of course, I was very happy to do that. And it was an incredible experience to have them come and eat a meal, I think for like 3 or 4 nights while they were in town. And they were, of course, lovely, beautiful, just sweet as can be kind of folk. And but they noticed, I don't know if a lot of you know, but the restaurant where Kaya is now, that used to be my restaurant, Dandelion Community Cafe, I left 5 years before it closed. Y'all, that was not me. And don't worry, I'm actually planning to open a new cafe inside a Spiral Circle this year, right in the Mills 50 district. So you're okay. Good news for everybody, right? See, look for the help first. I'm one of them. It's true. And so anyway, they said, hey, like, I mean, their guy translated for them, but they said, hey, like, we know this tree. There's a Bodhi tree that is planted on the property where Kaya is now, and but it was planted when Dandelion Community Cafe was there, and hat tip to the Florida School of Holistic Living, which are the ones that acquired a cutting of the tree from. There was a Bodhi tree printed at the UCF Arboretum, and they were tearing the Arboretum down, which is a whole nother thing, and we don't even have to talk about it. But anyway, they were tearing the Arboretum down, and so they were able to get some cuttings from that tree, and they brought it to the dandelion property, and they planted it in traditional Buddhist ceremony. There was like a walking meditation, and it was a really beautiful event, and it was incredible. And so this particular Bodhi tree, thus named after the Bodhisattva, is said to have basically come from the same region where Buddha was allegedly sat, not allegedly, whatever. Buddha sat to attain enlightenment in this grove, and so this particular tree was a direct descendant from that grove. So it was a very special tree, right? And so they saw the tree and they were like, "Yo." I mean, they didn't say yo. I'm just translating, okay? They were like, "Yo, like we know this tree. We basically want to come and bless this tree in the morning." And I was like, "Okay. Do you mind if I like tell my employee, like, can I show up with a few people?" And they were like, "Yeah, of course, whatever." And so they sat and did this hour-long chant with the like, there's some sort of crazy like throat chanting that they do, which was incredible to witness and be a part of. It was absolutely beautiful. It was a beautiful day. And an entire group of Tibetan monks blessed this Bodhi tree that had been planted ceremonially outside of Dandelion. I want to say this might have been like 2010, 11, 12. I don't even remember. I was trying to look up for the pictures, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, so this tree has been, it grew from a little tiny sapling up to a huge tree that it is now. And it is a incredible, incredible tree. And I just had this incredible experience, just sharing meals for several days, as well as, listening and participating as an observer in the blessing of this tree, in order to, just give it the spiritual nourishment that the Buddha, the Buddhist Tibetan monks, felt like it deserved. And it was just, another layer in the 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 plight of the Tibetans that have had to deal with a lot. There's movies, okay? We're not going to go into it. But they've basically been, it's just, the most nicest, sweetest, peaceful people, okay? Who have some spiritual technologies and knowledge that they practice prayerfulness and mindfulness in order to help spread peace in the world, to raise people out of fear and into love and compassion, right? And so I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. So fast forward to several years ago, and I'm now the owner of Spiral Circle Bookstore, which is basically 2 blocks away from where Dandelion used to be. And I was interviewing this delightful soul. Her name was Magdalena. And she was basically being interviewed to be a reader. We do intuitive readings. The Spiral Circle for decades has done intuitive readings, and we seriously vet all of the readers. And there's like 3 different people that interview each reader. Anyway, so she was not even from here. She's been a world traveler. She had no idea about my prior experience at Dandelion. She had no idea of, she didn't know anything. She wasn't even from this town, right? And so she's giving me a reading as part of this interview process, and she was like, I keep seeing this Buddha, she's like, "Do you know the Buddha tree? It's like the tree that has the heart-shaped leaves." And I said, "Yeah, I do, And she was like, "I'm being told that this is a very important tree for your spiritual development." And I was like, "Huh, okay, that's interesting." And I was like, "Why is that coming?" I was like, "Okay, Julie knows." And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I didn't even know." And she said all these other things. There's other things in the reading, but she was like, "This is very, very important for your spiritual development." And I said, "Okay, that's interesting." And so 2 days later, I'm not even kidding you, one of my former employees, Juan Carlos, reached out to me and he said, "Hey, um, I'm moving, and I have something I want to give you because I think it needs to go in the ground, and I think you're the one that needs to. I think it's for you." And I was like, "Okay, what's going on?" And he said he had a cutting from the tree from dandelion. Um, the Bodhi tree at Dandelion, he had a cutting that he had planted, and he thought I should have it. And so this is like 2 days after this, random reading where she's bringing up the Bodhi tree, for me. And so I was like, "Wow, that's fascinating connection," right? And so I was like, "Okay." And so I received it and I invited a few people over, and we also did a meditative planting um on Bodhi Day. I think it's December 8th is Bodhi Day, as a celebration of it. So we planted it on December 8th. And I was like, "Wow, this is great." So me and Bodhi were like down. He's like, "There's another tree in my front yard, growing, and I've got a little spiral thing going on around it, and it's amazing, and I love it." And fast forward to a couple months ago, and it's me and Yuki and Shantae, who are two of my dear friends and colleagues, and we're just kind of quietly, nobody's in the store. We're all just kind of quietly doing different things. And Yuki, who's incredibly excitable, if you know Yuki, she's incredibly excitable. And she goes, "Oh," and she starts freaking out, and she's like, Bodhi tree." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "There's a Bodhi tree right outside." And it's like waving at me because she was like hanging something up in the window. And I look outside and I was like, "No freaking way." And right there in one of the big pots that has like this really spiky like plant in it, like a plant you would not want to stick your hand into, right? Because you're gonna get hurt. Um, Out of that is a like 4-foot sapling Bodhi tree. I am not even kidding you. At Spiral Circle, we have no idea how it got there. It just popped up, right? And I was like, "What is going on with this Bodhi tree?" Anyway, so anytime I see activity from Tibetan monks, especially in the United States, it may even be, I don't know how many groups of Tibetan monks are in the United States. It might even be the same group that blessed the tree originally at Dandelion. But they're doing a walk for peace right now, and it is just the sweetest, most pleasant thing. You've got to go watch it because it is just they're walking. They're halfway through. It looks like they're doing a 108-day walk. It started on October 26th, and it's supposed to go to February 12th. And they're walking from, I think they have like they're like situated and quartered in a temple in Fort Worth, Texas, and they decided that they are going essentially from state capital to state capital until they reach the White House, which is the United States Capitol, obviously. And it is a walk for peace. And it is, if you're turning on the news and you see what is going on in Minneapolis with the woman who just became unalived at the hands of ICE. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But and what is happening in Minneapolis right now, which is, not unprecedented because crazy stuff has happened in this country before, but pretty unprecedented for these days and times. Okay. Anywho, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's put a pin in that. But there's just, chaos and anarchy as ICE is basically outnumbering the police right now in Minneapolis. So it might say Minnesota. I don't know what I'm saying. Minneapolis is in Minnesota, right? Okay. I have facts, I swear. But I'm also juggling a lot, you guys. I'm raising a kid, and we're about to do inventory at the store, and then I'm raising money for a cafe, and yeah, there's a lot going on. Plus I'm trying to keep up with the news and everything else. So anyway, it's beautiful, and people are joining in the walk. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people as they're walking through their communities are walking with them for a stretch. And it is absolutely joyous and beautiful and overwhelming, overwhelmingly gorgeous. So I just wanted to say that you can, if you want to find out what's going on with them, you can, it's Walk for Peace. Somehow they got that on Facebook. And I'm just going to read you. It says, kind of like what their mission is. It says, the Walk for Peace is a living prayer for our world. It began on October 26th at their center in Fort Worth. I would say it, but I don't know how to say it. I don't I know there's a Vipassana Bhavana Center. I'm saying it terribly. I'm so sorry. And it's a journey that will span approximately 2,300 miles at a peaceful pace of 20 to 23 miles per day. This is not a protest. It is a living expression of hope. Each step is taken with mindfulness, carrying a message of harmony, kindness, and resilience. To fulfill this vision, they seek the support and participation of everyone, regardless of background or belief. With your compassion, the Walk for Peace can unfold with dignity and become a meaningful contribution to all who seek peace. They believe that change begins with each of us. Every act of kindness, every moment of peace, and every bit of mindful support brings us closer to a more compassionate world. So that is one of the most beautiful things. It is just like, I mean, like the contrast between the amazing, beautiful, hopeful walk where people are just living and in compassion, and what is going on in other places in the union right now, couldn't be more dramatic. And so yeah, it's just beautiful and it's hopeful. And I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. And I just also was really excited to tell you about my little history with the Bodhi tree myself, because it is really special. And I am just so grateful that I have had this this amazing tree connected to me for many years now. So anyway, you can also go visit the Bodhi tree on the Kaya property. I went to visit it after my old partner finally vacated that property. I hadn't been on it in several years, in 5 years, I think, 5 or 6 years. And so I finally returned and was able to kind of visit with the Bodhi tree there, which had grown up so much in my absence. And I got to talk to the parents of the people who run Kaya. And they were like, yeah, they were like, yeah, what's the, like, people come here and visit the tree, you know? And I was like, yeah. And I kind of explained to them what happened and what the history was with it. And they were like, oh, and I was like, yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So you can visit that Bodhi tree in where Kaya is now in the Mills 50 district. And there's a new little one sprouted up right outside of Spiral Circle. I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of weird. Spooky, weird things. Not spooky. It's not spooky at all. It's just magical. Basically, that's what that is. Okay, so we have other things going on in the community. And I really want to acknowledge that it can feel very overwhelming, especially if you're not someone who pays attention to much politics, if you didn't grow up with politics in your house. Either way, I grew up with conservative parents. Some people grew up with, liberal parents. And I've kind of taken an informal survey. And basically, if you didn't grow up with politics in your house, you're not interested in politics now. And if you did grow up with it in house, no matter how it was involved, you're probably paying some sort of attention. And I have never not paid attention to what is going on politically. Especially as a business owner, what is happening politically affects things economically. And it is important that a lot of business owners pay attention. I've also noted that I'm head of my household. And sometimes in households, there can be a division of political interest. Either one or other of the spouses might be paying attention while the other one's like, look, you do the political, keep up with that, and I'm going to do this other stuff, right? And so there's sometimes a division of emotional labor involved with following politics in households. But I don't have that because it's just, me, and I'm the head of my household. And I have a kid that I need to teach how to be aware and walk in the world, because there's a lot going on, especially for women's rights, you know, that she needs to be aware of, right? Moving into the world, to make a change, right? So, I'm gonna switch over. I tried to post things on my Facebook page so that way I can just kind of come back and reference them later. Um, but we have more unprecedented things going on. Since I've been here, we've, you know, gotten into Venezuela and kidnapped a sitting, not great guy, super bad guy actually. But not for reasons that was great, and certainly not to install democracy because yeah, follow the oil. But that was a huge break from international protocols. And that is not I that is this is like there's a lot going on the global stage. So if you're not following politics locally, you're definitely not following them globally. And I can tell you right now that there are some pretty heavy things going on. We have European nations warning their citizens to prepare for war. We have our allies are being threatened, of course, for being invaded. I think, Donald Trump was asking the military to figure out how to take over Greenland, and reports are that the military is like, we're not going to do that. That's illegal, my dude. And that's one of our allies. And so he's like, I don't care, let's go in anyway. Anyway, so then they're like, stop basically everything that's happening with Venezuela and, threatening our allies. That is basically no good. Our allies are like, you know what? We used to share intelligence, and now we're not going to share intelligence with you anymore because you guys are no longer, we don't trust you, you know? And so that's kind of a big deal that that we're not going to be sharing intelligence with other countries. That is a safety concern of some sort. And also just all of this posturing for, invading and taking over territories. And not just posturing. I mean, we actually went into Venezuela. And so that is, apparently a footnote now. Even though, it's under the footnote of he was supposed to release the State Department was supposed to release the Epstein files. I believe sometime in December, I want to say on the 19th, less than 1% has been released. People are saying like, oh, this is all a distraction from the Epstein files. And I would say that it's been the agenda. I mean, these are things that he's been talking about. And so I think it's just things he would do anyway. I think that it's possible that there are things going on. People are saying, let's wait till the midterms. I don't think that the midterms are going to really matter much, but there is a chance. We've got several seats open in Congress. Basically, someone died and several people resigned. And there's a couple of contested election results that, it could tip, Congress could tip into Democratic hands sooner than the midterms, which is cool, right? We want somebody who's going to do something to uphold some sort of laws, right? And that would be just like so cool at this point in time, like past due, beyond. And so what we've got is, supposed to have released the Epstein files. We've also got, rumors of that Trump's health is declining more seriously than it has in the past. So there might be a ticking clock on what he can accomplish for his legacy before he travels on to wherever he's going next. And that is probably applying some pressure here in terms of like hurry up and get things done that we want to get done. One of which is like destroying like I gotta look that up again. What is that thing about NASA? NASA data center. Sometimes I know something's happening and data erase. Let's see. This is like real news. I'm going to find it for you guys because I think that's important. We're in the Space Coast here, so we know. Um, wait, I've got to search for the news. I'm going to find it. Anyway, there's a lot of things going on. Yes. Okay. NASA workers say defending ancient will erase future U.S. science and technology gains. There's basically a lot going on. I know it's a real thing. I can't find it right now, but they're basically closing down some data center that is used for research, all this space, data that basically there's like they're going through it and they're going to throw out a bunch of it, which what is wrong with you? Like why? I don't know. People like to, also close libraries. Seems like another thing. They also like to close weather centers and FEMA aid. Yeah, those are all things that are happening right now. So then we have the Epstein files, and then we had the Venezuela incursion. And then of course, ICE is now outnumbering the number of police officers that are in let me get there. Hold on. I'm going to go back to my little Facebook page here because I got to do it, right? Minnesota. That's what it is. Minnesota. St. Paul. Okay. So basically, on day one of ICE, like basically going, like sending thousands of ICE officers, is that what they're called? Who don't have jurisdiction, by the way. They outside of 100 miles of the border. I mean, they expanded the reach of ICE to be 100 miles of the border in recent, I think sometime this year, but they're like way outside of that. And even when they are in a place, they have no authority over U.S. citizens. They can't make traffic stops. They can't make arrests. They're not allowed to do stuff like that. Like it's not. That's not their business, right? They have a very, very, very narrow scope of what they can do and where they can do it. And what they've been doing in Minnesota, there are reports that essentially people are saying J.D. Vance, which I don't know why they're letting J.D. Vance do press conferences. That doesn't seem really in vogue with what Trump would like. Because he's like the showboat guy. And so that makes me feel uncomfortable that I feel like that's why I'm like, something's really going on with Trump's health if they're letting J.D. Vance be given all these kinds of press releases. Anyway, J.D. Vance is like, oh, we're going to be going door to door. And then the next day they start going door to door. And when I say door to door, it's not like, oh, they're going door to door in neighborhoods where people are suspected of being, criminal, illegal aliens in hiding. They're just going door to door in regular neighborhoods, like literally door to door, which you need a search warrant. You need all of these different things. None of that is happening. There's video online of them breaking down doors and basically arresting people who say that they're U.S. citizens. And they also went into high schools and, used chemical agents as high schoolers were getting out of school. And then of course there's a lot of video out there. I'm not going to go into the graphic details, but a woman by the name of what is her first name? Nicole Good is I'm so sorry. I cannot believe I'm blanking on this. There's just been a lot going on. You know what I'm saying? Let me scroll down. Because I have a thing about her name. Let's see. Here it is. Renee. Renee Nicole Good is her name. And she was shot and killed. And everybody can just go watch the tape. We all have eyes. Okay. We all have eyes. And it's horrific. It's horrific that this is happening. And very sad in so many ways. And there was actually a doctor that was there. There was a bunch of people out on the street trying to protect their neighbors. And this doctor was like, "Hey, let me check her pulse. Let me get to her." And they were like, "We don't care." I mean, literally, that's what they said. And so they basically did not offer any aid, which they're legally required to do in a situation like this. And then they wouldn't move their vehicles for the ambulance to come in. So when the ambulance got there 15 minutes later, they actually had to walk, several, yards, 100 yards, I think, to get to her to try to render aid. Completely, completely out of pocket situation. Should be very concerning to anybody, and was very concerning to everybody there. I remember one of my best friends and I, we had this thing where we're like, every once in a while we're like, something happens and we're like, did you catch the name on that guy? Or the name is almost like written for the role, the villainous role that they play, or the heroic role that they're playing, right? And so we always have this like funny word association thing going on. And so when I saw that Renee's last name was Good, I was like, huh, I wonder what Renee and Nicole mean. And so I looked it up, and Renee means like basically revitalized, rebirthed, renewed. And Nicole, the middle name, is a reference to the goddess Nike. And the goddess Nike is most known for victory, but is also most known for like victory of the people. So not just any victory, but like victory of like the people, the folk. And then of course, good, meaning good and righteous, right? And so I was like, well, that is interesting. And, maybe this is a symbol, or a sign that this will be a spark point. Because even though many people, particularly, of course, people of color, have been killed in ICE custody, um, this was, a blonde, blue-eyed white woman, and nothing upsets people like white people, like one of their own, happening. Not such a big reaction when it happens to brown people, unfortunately, which is not great. We had Trayvon Martin happened here in Sanford, and that was the spark point for Black Lives Matter. And yeah, they you know it's a waking up point for people. I know in talking to a number of white people over the last couple of weeks or whatever, it's been saying, like everyone who's white, I'm just going to say it, they recognize that they thought that white people were going to be safe from this. They thought that, like if they're at the point where they're doing this to white folks in the middle of the street, then is real bad, is the consensus amongst the white people. So white people know, they know the privilege that they have. And a lot of now there's a lot of white folks that have also been allies and have been, getting involved in Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, but not enough to make a difference, I don't know, in say the election against with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Which, interestingly, let's touch on the point that this is happening in a state that is nowhere near the border that that Trump and the Republicans seem to think is a problem, which is the southern border, right? And so immigration crackdown in a community with very little immigrants, particularly the kinds of the quote unquote immigrants that they say are, the worst from the southern border, right? And I'm, not my beliefs. This is what they're saying. And so, it's a blue state, and it happens to be Tim Walz state, who ran against Trump in the last election. And Trump is openly said he's like totally, loves to give retribution. And so you have daycare centers being shut down with accusations of fraud. They're taking away I like funding for food stamps and things like that for this state, which also happens to be also a very progressive one, a sanctuary state for transgender folk, and on and on. And uh, so there's memes going around about being stuck between a rock and a hard place, because National Guard in most instances would come and protect the citizens. But in this instance, if National Guard gets called in, speculation is that if the National Guard gets called in and then there's a conflict between the federal ICE agents and the National Guard, then that could be essentially used as an excuse to create martial law and possibly, cancel elections or whatever. This is, just what people who study these things and the patterns of these things that happen over and over in authoritarian regimes are saying would be a likely scenario. Not guaranteed, of course, but certainly doesn't look great, right? Now, meanwhile, if you go into there's a resource that you can look at current. It's called it's like a crowd-sourced sightings for ICE activity. It's called iceout.org, and you can go there and you can look at the map, and you can see who is reporting what kind of activity. There's different kinds of activity that's being reported. And some of it is verified by the people who run the website. Others of it is, it's just like, when you're on the road with Google, and Google Maps is like, is there still an object on the road? And you're like, yes, or no, I don't see it. Or, is there police still there? And you're like, yes, no. So it's basically a crowdsourced way to kind of let each other know what's going on, right? And it's cleared out every morning at 4 a.m. So that way, you're basically dealing with today's activity only, right? And so they have levels from critical, active, observed, just observed, like, hey, are they just hanging out having coffee? Are they actively moving around with purpose, or is there a critical situation, is like somebody being detained or harmed, right? And if you look at the entire United States, you have a little bit going on. Most of the middle of America is pretty clear. There's a couple of dots there. Quite a few things going down in LA today. A few things going on. I looked at Florida, of course. You've got a few things here and there. As of earlier this morning, there's only like 3 things that were being reported. We don't know. These are not validated reports, but it's just people saying things, right? But then if you scroll up and you go and you look at what's going on to the north, there is a lot going on in Minnesota right now, like hundreds of things. There's just like too many. There's a ton that is going on. So you can go to iceout.org and look at these. You can see how many red critical things there are, as well as just, activity. It's a lot going on. And the people, if you're on Threads or Facebook, and people from Minneapolis are saying, are people seeing the news? Do they understand what's going on here? Do they understand that, basically ICE is just moving around, doing whatever they want? There's allegations that people are being kidnapped at work, that there are people, like one girl's hand got broken, and they're saying they're U.S. citizens. It's not even brown people. It's not even people. There's like, these are the reports that are going on. And Minnesota is asking people to pay attention, and they're warning the rest of America that we could be next. And they're asking people to pay attention. There's also a little bit of activity. The other pocket of activity I see is going on is in the New York region, in terms of like critical situations today. So that is a resource that people can look at just to see, hey, what's going on, and why does it matter? And so and so, yeah, it's important to pay attention because, you know, right now it looks like most red states are kind of okay, meaning protected, because they have governors who probably have large donors in their states who, quite frankly, rely on immigrant labor, and don't want problems with their workforce. And so, though, there might be a correlation there between places um, that are Democratic states. Yeah, just something to consider. Just something to consider. Um, so yeah, unprecedented times, and still no information, no releasing of anything from the Epstein files. But there is a new thing trending on Threads. I'm not going to go into it because it's super dark. But there is a person whose name is Sasha, and they say that they were a child victim of the Epstein files, and they have released essentially 7 um, interviews. I think this dropped back in November, but it somehow just got picked up in the algorithm or something like that. A logarithm. I still don't know how to say that word. And he's naming names, because people are like, why can't these ladies just name names? And, they've been saying we're afraid of being unalived. And so they want it to go through the proper channels. But this fellow is like, he's like dropped names, and, at least 3 of them. And I'm not going to say it on air. It's something you can go look up. Pretty dark stuff. And it's, basically, I've read a little bit about it, and everyone's like, whatever you think it is a million times worse than your wildest bad imagination of what things are. And so that is something that it's interesting to me, the difference between what is being shown on Threads versus what is being shown on Facebook, which is owned by Meta. And just this morning, somebody, I saw that Trump was congratulating somebody that used to work in his administration is now the president of Meta, which Meta is the company that owns Facebook and all of that. And so he was like, yay, what a great choice to run Meta. So that should be interesting news that everybody needs to know about as well. So what do we do with this information, right? What do we do? How do we navigate this? I mean, as a parent, I've had to have some really interesting conversations with my child about the future that they're walking into, and conversations about where to go to college in terms of like campus safety and things like just like what what state is figuring out third world country things. And we've talked about going abroad, and I'm like, yeah, well, European countries are warning their citizens that there could be a war there. So how do you make choices in an atmosphere like this, right? And it comes down to being present. It comes down also to essentially thickening your skin. And one of the things that I just really want to point out, and nobody's talking about this. I don't know why people are not talking about this, but we've gotten like the psychology of what dictators are like. We've gotten the psychology of how they program the masses, right? But like there's no like psychological breakdown of people who are experiencing the rise of fashion, rise of fashion. I wish it was the rise of fashion, you guys, the rise of fascism, and the emotional trajectory that you go on with that, right? And so I feel like if we understood what the psychological stages were, then we might be able to like identify where we were at in that. And so there's a Kubler-Ross like grief stage thing, And they applied that same theory to a change curve, they call it. And so I'm going to give you the stages here. The first one is not even on the chart. It's the people that don't even know that change is happening. So they who are like just think this is politics as normal, or they think that or they're just not paying attention at all. A lot of people just totally tune out. Like they're just like, you know what? I cannot even listen to another second of this. And so they're just like, I'm just gonna be doing my thing over here. And so they don't even know what's going on. So there's like this whole like segment that's not even in this chart, which is basically just totally checked out, totally not paying attention, completely oblivious, right? So basically, a lot of people are in that oblivious, they're off the chart in this oblivious stage. Um, and, not wanting to look at it, right? Because when you do the first stage is shock. And this is, basically, I'm so surprised. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. You know, like, ah, and then there's like denial that comes after that, which is disbelief and looking for evidence that it isn't true. Like some of that denial might be like, well, this must be AI, because that's also something unprecedented that we're dealing with right now. There is some of it is so outrageous that it's like that's got to be an exaggeration. So there's like a level of, there's denial that people go through, and then there's frustration after that, which is the recognition that things are different. And it can also involve feeling angry. And so that is like, why isn't anyone doing anything? Or, I know sometimes like I get mad because I expect bad people to be bad people, but I kind of have better hopes for other regular people, especially like friends that I know don't want bad things to happen. I get mad like, oh, why didn't people just vote? So you get into that and you just want to start blaming people. And you get frustrated at the politicians, you get frustrated, right? And then the next stage is depression, which is, of course, low mood, lacking in energy, feelings of hopelessness, like there's nothing that you can be done, which is called in the fascist playbook, that would be maybe like recognizing that's happening, but like obeying in advance because you don't want to be targeted. You think that if you'll just be good right now and not say anything, then well, it's not going to end up on your doorstep. Yeah, so there's shock. So there's like completely just oblivious. And then there's an awareness that becomes shock, denial, frustration, depression. And then there's this experimental phase where initially engagement with a new situation. So maybe this comes when people are like, okay, I'm going to like go down and engage with my food pantry because people are, having problems, or I'm going to go to an ICE observer training, or I'm going to join Moms for demanding action, and you're going to call your senator. So this is where you're like experimenting with different things, and feeling like, okay, maybe there's something I can do. And then of course this scale is not like, it's not like oh, I'm going to go here, 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 and then I'm going to get to the integration, which is at the end. But you can go back and forth, right? And then there's a decision point after this experimental phase, where you basically accept the reality of what's going on. And that is when you learn how to work in the new situation, feeling more positive. And I got to tell you, I'm an early adopter to this change curve, and it's because I've been following politics for a very, very long time. It's because I've been paying attention to what's going on. And I, especially as a person who is a leader and in business, and, I'm a parent, it's my job to like kind of figure out what to do. Right. And so I know that panicking is not helpful. I know that worrying and, excessive worrying and being, paralyzed with anxiety is not helpful. Depression also not helpful. Okay, everything's helpful in some degree because all feelings are valid and whatever. And yeah, I struggle with those things too. I get depressed, I get sad, I get angry. I allow the feelings to happen. And then I say, you know what, we're going to move on from that, because the real important thing here is that we stay connected, we stay in joyous appreciation for every single good moment that we have. And we do things like, there's a whole group of us watching Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind on the Indian Lawn the other day, right? We still need to get together. We still need to have fun. We still need to know that good people are out there and that we can laugh and have a good time, right? But when you get to the point where you just are like, this is happening, like, because there's this really long phase before you get to that acceptance. That doesn't mean you agree or that you're giving up. It just means that you're no longer like, I can't believe that they did this. I'm shocked. This is crazy. This is wild. I mean, that's what most of what I see in my feed from most people are ignoring what's going on. And then the few people that are saying something are just outraged and shocked. And I can't believe this is happening. And where is our leaders? And da 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 da. And that is honestly keeping you really busy, not being strategic about what you need to be doing, which is preparing your household for hard times. It is, learning about history. It is learning about, like things like, this website for reporting ICE, right? So by being caught in this, oh, these people are stupid, it's going to go away, we're just going to wait for the midterms, that is all keeping people from accepting. It's going to, somebody's going to step in. It'll be fine. We just have to wait to the midterm, all of these different things. That is keeping you from, it's like this limbo place. Limbo is never really fun for anyone. Okay. And when we're in limbo, it's really, 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 really uncomfortable and it makes us anxious. So we have to get to a place of accepting the reality and not being surprised by it, and hopefully understanding some of the mechanisms that are going on here, so that we can be strategic. Like those of us that are living in this region, which is a blue island in a red state, we can look out. I mean, we saw what happened with freaking rainbows on sidewalks here, right? And everyone, I love you guys, just rallied right up, right? But we can see that what's happening in other regions right now, people are like putting out the call. If you got a friend up there, give them a call. Say, what's going on? What kind of help do you need? There are things that we can be doing here now to be prepared if and when that ends up on our block. I'm not going to tell you what that is because you got to do some Googling, kids, important. So got to Google, got to have the conversations, got to do it. And I'm just going to leave you with something really uplifting at the end because I'm not going to bring you down and then not lift you up. That would be silly. I'm going to come back to our friends, the group of Tibetan monks that are doing this walk for peace. And I'm going to try to meet up with them. I'm going to do it. This is the last post that they posted from day 76. They're in Gilbert and Lexington, South Carolina. And they say, some people may ask, how can I stay peaceful when difficult situations arise? And they say, we must begin by understanding we are where we are. Situations happen, often without warning, often beyond our control. We cannot always prevent or change them. But here is what we can control, the way we respond. When difficulty arrives, our minds rush forward, overthinking, catastrophizing, creating stories about how terrible things are. We make situations heavier by adding layers of worry and fear on top of what is already challenging. If we pause, if we become mindful of our breath in that moment, if we notice our thoughts without getting swept away, something shifts. The situation doesn't disappear, but we stop making it worse. We create space for clarity, and in that clarity, we can see what we should actually do to help the situation instead of just worrying and feeling defeated. And this goes right to that Kubler-Ross change curve or process I was telling you about. In that mindful pause, we might also remember something we've forgotten. Right now, countless conditions are still nourishing our life. We are alive, we can breathe, we can eat, we can walk. These are profound gifts, genuine happiness, but we rarely see them because our minds are too busy racing towards worry, too consumed by what's wrong to notice what remains right. This is what mindfulness offers in difficult moments. Not power to control what happens, but wisdom to see clearly what helpful action we can take, to breathe consciously, to remember that even in difficulty, we are still held by life, still capable of responding wisely instead of simply reacting. The situation is what it is, but we can change how we meet it, with presence instead of panic, with clarity instead of confusion, with wise action instead of helpless worry. Peace in difficult times doesn't mean nothing bothers us. It means we stop making everything worse by losing ourselves in our thoughts. It means we stay grounded enough to see what we can actually do, then do it with a calm heart. May you and all beings be well, happy, and at peace. That is reading directly from the blog of the Walk for Peace Tibetan monks that are doing a 108-day walk from capital to capital all the way to Washington, D.C. And you can follow them along on Facebook, Walk for Peace. Their website, I'm going to spell it. I don't know how to say it. It's Dhamma Setia, I think. I'm going to spell it DHAMMACETIYA.com. And yeah, I hope you guys know that Mr. Rogers, he always said, look for the helpers. And I will say, when my kiddo came in stressed out about what was going on in Minneapolis, as we should be stressed out a little bit. It's okay to have those feelings, but then take the breath. And I said, I want you to know that I wanted you to look around at what happened around that situation. The people that were there, they didn't run away and hide. They stayed there and they kept filming and they kept, holding these people accountable. And those are the people that are helping right now, because without all of that being recorded and streamed to all of us, we wouldn't know what happened. We would maybe fall for the other narrative that is being propped up, which is in direct opposition to what your eyes can see on those videos. So look for the helpers, everyone. Take a moment to follow the Walk for Peace, because I think that is a beautiful example of calm, peaceful, compassionate action and community and communion. It's beautiful. Stay tuned next. Gulf of America. No? Different name now? What'd you do? Gulf?
Fun.
It's in my head. Gulf of Mexico. It's the Gulf of Mexico show coming next, and you guys are going to have a great time with it, because we always do. Thanks for tuning in from Porch Radio. I'm Julie Weiler. It's WPRK, and I am going to find the next. Where am I? I'm supposed to be the 5 o'clock segue. Here we go. It's time. I'm going to stop talking to you guys. This is it.